is for me to introduce myself. So, who am I? My name is Bianca. I wish I could tell you some amazing things, like I'm a doctor and I've studied all these amazing things, because that's what we're here for, right? We're in academia. We want to get to the top of our game. At least that's what everyone tells you. Everyone tells you that that's where everyone needs to be. But what I want to tell you is that sometimes we have some very interesting paths that we take. You can tell by my picture on the screen, you can tell by my face on the screen, that I probably don't come across as the usual academic that you have in your mind. And that's probably because I didn't start as an academic. I started as a graphic designer in advertising. And I fell into academia, and I want to say maybe in the beginning it was just one of those things that I happened to be good at, so I tried it a little bit, and then I fell in love with it. So again, I think it's so important to think about these things from where you are in your own context as well. Because a lot of the time we like, this is what I sort of decided when I was 14 years old. I planned on picking these things and I was going to move into this, and then I was going to go to university and I was going to do this, and then I was going to be this for the rest of my life. I can assure you, I never expected to be here, and I'm incredibly happy. Um, you've probably heard the old adage that life happens when you're busy making other plans. And so, yes, it's going to be a very interesting discussion tonight, because here I am giving you some good methods to plan your year. But at the same time, I want you to be very, very well aware that sometimes stuff happens that doesn't give you the opportunity to continue on what you planned. But it doesn't mean the end. Here I am, full proof that just because the plans didn't work out, it doesn't mean that you're not where you're through a lot of things tonight. What I can tell you is right now, right here, each of you has a plan to succeed this year. Some of you have come out of the previous year very stressed. Some of you have come out of the previous year feeling incredibly good. But either way, sometimes we just need a place to sit down and to think about where we're at right now, so that we can actually plan as best as possible for the next month, the next few months, and hopefully the next year. But being very aware that if something doesn't go according to plan, it's no reason to berate ourselves and to beat ourselves and say we're bad people. We're not, we're human. So yeah, I think for me, it's very important that I must be honest with all of you. You can go to my LinkedIn, you can see all the weird and wonderful things I've done in my youth, even in entertainment industry because of being a designer. And now I'm a project manager working in online learning, developing courses. I've been in education for almost 20 years this year. So yeah, things have a way of working out in the end, but I promise you, I didn't get here by not planning. That is one thing I can assure you. So even though initial plans didn't work out, I had new plans to get here. So with that being said, I think that today's session, there are 4 parts that I want us to focus on. And that is these four elements that will essentially help us or guide us through the next year. And that first part is results to reflection. I know some of you have probably heard the concept of reflection a lot. I'm not sure if you've ever been given tools. I can't assume that all of you have been given the tools. So I'm going to use a tool that I'm going to be providing you with a tool. I find it a very easy tool, but it is a tool that I give all my postgraduate design students that we use throughout the year, and it's a very incredible tool. So we will be doing that in part 1. Part 2, we move into taking the insights that we gather and then turning them into systems. Now, that may seem very confusing because you're thinking of like goals, but there's a reason that I'm using the word systems, and we'll see. And then once we have those systems in place, then talking about organization, well-being, and sustainability. Because for me, those are key areas that help us to pursue the goals to get to where we need to be. And then finally, taking all of these three parts and setting up what I'd like to call our 12-month reset. So with that being said, we jump into part one. So the main thing is, in part one, the results to reflection part, we have to think about the concept of, oh, and I hate the word, so I'm going to use it in a very soft way. The word fail. I don't believe in the word fail. Another thing that probably sets me apart from some other sort of academic spaces. But for me, if you can pick yourself up and keep moving forward, how is that failure? If you learn something from the mistakes that are made and you are able to do something with those mistakes, that is not failure. So as long as you're continuously moving forward, even if you take a little, dip, or you trip, or your path diverts, we can't say that's failure. We're just saying that that's a different path. It's a learning opportunity. It's a way that we use our experience to create something more for ourselves. So I just want you to know that I feel that most people don't fail because they're lazy, which a lot of the time we're given this impression that that's the case. But people tend to, I want to say, land up in a tough situation where they struggle to move forward because it's the systems that don't match their reality. And that's another thing that I don't want to do. I don't want to give you a bunch of things that work for me and tell you they will work for you. I'm going to give you some things that work for me, but again, they might not work for you. But the idea is to plant seeds in your mind so that you can find what works for you, knowing you the way you know best, and also speaking to people around you that know you. So, I think it's important that we consider what results are, because ultimately, in order for us to move forward, we always have to look at where we've come from. And the only way we can do that is by looking at results. So what are these results? So results are, they look very different, whether we're an academic, whether we are a student, whether we are gathering information from perhaps a performance review, if we are working. Maybe it's just personal experience. Maybe it's a result from our personal lives. But at the end of the day, we can't actually decide on moving forward unless we have something to work with. And it's data, right? It's one of the reasons that we do research in education, and the reason that you're given assignments and assessments. It's to gather data to assess what we know, what we don't know, so that we can move forward. And so the same can be said with our lives. We don't just wake up, okay, well, some of us do. We wake up on January the 1st and we're like, I'm going to do this. And we're like, okay, cool. And then 4 days later we fail because we didn't think about where we came from. We only started on January 1st and we were like, I'm going there. But we didn't take into consideration lots of things that were in our paths, that were in our lives. And so we always talk, the older you get, you'll realize that the New Year's resolution is not a great thing, because a lot of people take that and they're like, okay, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to do 1,000,000 things every single day and I'm not going to stop. And you just didn't think about where you came before. Why did you fail before? What happened before? Where are you now? Is it normal? Like if you've gone and I'm going to take weight because that's always the standard one, at least for people my age. On January 1st, they're like, I'm going to stop smoking, or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to drink less, or, things like that, right? But they don't think, oh, okay, well, I'm a heavier person. And now I've said that I'm going to run 10 kilometers every day. Is that a logical thing? No, it isn't a logical thing. So you're setting yourself up for failure. And in the same way that when we are working in our own little context, whether we're studying accounting or law or education, whatever it is, what happened previously that will help us make the decisions moving forward? So these results will look different for each of you in this room right now. For some, you're going to be looking at your previous marks. For others, you might be looking at very specific modules that you've done. And if some of you are working and studying, you might be looking at how you're balancing the two things at the same time. What is your performance? Not your performance just in the academic space, but your performance in maybe a workplace as well. Are you looking at your results from a place where people around you are giving you more responsibility because they trust you? Is that something that perhaps gives you more confidence as well? So I think it's important that we realize we can't start this process without realizing who we are and what we're using, what data are we using to make decisions moving forward. So with that being said, it's important to realize that the results that we find in our own spaces are based off of patterns. They're patterns that, and again, as you grow older, these patterns become more and more obvious to you. So I said in the beginning, for me, I like to be honest about who I am. I can't come in here and tell you that I'm the most perfect person and things have just worked out 100%. And no, I had to learn the hard way patterns that I was struggling with. Very lucky and very happy that my mom realized that there were certain patterns that were emerging in my, I want to say, in my primary school years. And she guided me to get through them. It's only later on in life now that I've been diagnosed with ADHD. But I have not ever seen it as a problem, to be honest with you, because my mom saw a pattern, and back then that's what you did. You saw a pattern, and through that pattern, she was like, okay, here's some tools, here's what we're going to do. She taught me some crazy ways to learn. For instance, she could see my brain was working in colors and pictures. So I mean, I was even learning my very theoretical modules with pictures and colors and things. And so it was great. She helped me to realize the importance of finding the patterns in myself. So if you, for instance, are really, really struggling with a module, what are the patterns that you're seeing? And having worked with students in the past, I would notice certain things and sit with my students. I often spend quite a bit of time with my students that were struggling, because I'd ask the question first, why are you struggling? And always it would be this module is hard or this particular work is hard. And then I'd say to them, okay, but what is hard about it? And then when you start to get to the nitty gritty of it, it's really a case of, because the student is struggling, you already go on the back foot with it. And I'm sure some of you have already experienced this. So with every single thing that you do, you land up being in a space where you're choosing the nice things to do. And I'm not even talking about like really nice things. I'm talking about like, if you have a choice between this module and that module, or this assessment and that assessment, you're always going to go for the one that's easier. And the one that's easier is the one that you like. So now if you're starting to see a pattern that you don't like something, you start to dislike it, you start to do badly in it, and then, trying to get over that hurdle, because that becomes a habit, a negative habit, if you will. So I think it's very important that when we talk about these patterns, that we realize that once we establish what those patterns are, coming to terms with the concept of consistency is very important. And I'm sure you've heard it all before, but there is something in the madness of the word consistency. If you just keep doing something, as hard as it is, at some point it becomes, I'd like to say that my musician friends would tell you it becomes muscle memory. Muscle memory means that you just automatically, your body knows that this is the thing it must get ready for, and like I say, normally musicians or sportsmen, they build that muscle memory. And so that consistency from a theoretical perspective, rather than a physical perspective, is something that really builds the habits. And we often talk about habits in a negative way. We often talk about habits being, oh, she has that bad habit. Oh, she's doing this and that's a bad habit. But habits can be incredibly positive. It's just a case of you finding those patterns and establishing new ways of framing those habits, and changing them to be positive for yourself. So building consistency is incredibly important. The other thing is then being able to look at your overall performance. So not just across a module, but like breaking it down. So how did you do, for instance, in a particular assessment? What went wrong in that assessment? There are lots of reasons something can go wrong. It might not just be, well, the assessment was hard. Why was it hard? Was something going on in your private life? Was there something emotionally going on? There's so many things that we need to really break down and get into the nitty gritty. And I talk about assessment, but it could be a duty at a job. So something didn't work in your life, and it has something to do with your job, the balancing act between work, your family, your ability to concentrate in a classroom environment online. There's so many different things. You could be sharing a space with, 3 other people, and trying to do things. So it's important that we establish those patterns in that as well. And then again, knowing that because we're human, energy will dip. Okay. When is energy dipping? Why is energy dipping? Again, it's a very personal thing, but for me, my energy dips when I go through what I want to say boredom. If I'm doing the same task over and over and over. Now, this is weird because that's how you build habits, but it's the way you build habits. If you're just doing a silly task over and over and over again without thinking about it, that can become very monotonous, and that can really break your concentration levels. And so it's, again, very important for you to say, okay, I must build this habit, but how can I build it in such a way? Again, I'm going to go into like a sports or a musical field now. How do I become really good at learning an instrument, or how do I become a very good DJ? I don't go and practice the same thing every single day. I'm going to go nowhere. I'm never going to become musical. I'm going to become someone that can do that one thing. Anyone who's ever tried to learn a musical instrument, or whoever's been in a sports environment, you will know that if you just do the same thing over and over and over again, at some point you get really, really good at that one thing, but you can do nothing beyond that. And that's not how we learn how to play soccer. That's not how we learn how to play a guitar. Yes, we learn the basics by all means, but thereafter we have to build the different things into it to give it, I want to say, nuance and give it personality. So the same thing can be said from your academic space. The same thing can be said from your workspace. We don't want to just build the basics and sit in the basics and pray that things change. No, we have to really bring personality and nuance and develop a space where we flourish and we thrive and we grow. You're going to hear me talk quite a bit about balance, because the only way that we can do these things is for us to be a holistic human, a person that realizes that we're not just a robot. So yeah, it is important that we establish this. So I think the first place that we need to then start is saying that when we start establishing where we went wrong, then we need to realize that we have to learn lessons. And we have to be able to learn those lessons and not put blame on ourselves. Blame is a terrible thing, and it gets you into an incredibly negative space. And by the way, it is very easy to blame ourselves. We do it all the time. We wake up in the morning, we didn't do something that we wanted to do, and we blame ourselves. But then it puts us into such a negative space that we land up really just going backwards. I can sit here all day and say, don't blame yourselves. I still blame myself. So again, it's incredibly important that we realize that we have to get out of the habit of blame, and we need to frame it in a more positive way where we say, this went wrong because how am I going to change that? Okay, let's move forward. But yes, it takes quite a long time to be able to build these skills, but it is important that you are aware of them. So with that being said, you'll see I've got 3 questions on the screen at the moment. What helped me stay consistent? What caused overload or avoidance? And what would I keep, change, or drop? I'm going to ask each of you now in the chat I want to say, let's not do all 3 of them. These are questions that you must keep close to yourself, and you'll ask yourself at the end of this. But I would like you to say, I want us to be positive now. So let's talk about something that you stayed consistent in last year. What was that thing that you were very consistent in? And then what do you think helped you to be consistent? And I don't mind what it is. It could be a sport. it could be a musical instrument, it could be something in your private life, but what is it that you were consistent in? And who or what helped you be consistent? I think I'm going to give you guys like a minute just to already answer that question. Sorry, it's a little bit loud here. I'll see if I can change that.
Would you like me to switch the mic permissions on?
We can type it in the chat. I'm fine with that as well.
Perfect.
Hey, wow. There's a lot of really, really amazing things being said here. Very impressed. See, someone said changing my diet, also great. Consistently going to work, running a small business. I'm very impressed with everyone here. Wow. Playing rugby kept me consistent. That's why I said it's so important. I know when we have these academic discussions, it often lands up where there's an absolute focus on just the academic side or just work. But I think we need to remember that there is a lot of importance in the balance that is around us. So whether that's sport, whether that's some hobby that we have, it's incredibly important that we are doing, the most for ourselves so that we become full human beings. Okay, so thanks, guys. You're more than welcome to keep chatting or to put stuff in here. That being said, I want to now take what we've already started talking about, and I did mention that I want us to move into a tool. So this is the tool that I give my postgrad design students, as mentioned. It is Rolf's reflective model. And this has been a game changer for my students. I think that, it's something that we never always have a lot of time to do. And we often, people make a lot of fun of people with diaries, for instance, but I don't want you to think of this as a diary. I want you to think of this as a positive reinforcement tool, if you will. But Rolf's reflective model is a very simple tool that looks at 3 points in all of our, in everything that we do. And we start off asking the question, what? Thereafter, we ask the question, so what? And finally, we say, now what? And even if you do this just at the end of every week or at the end of every assignment or at the end of every project at work, even if you have your own company, you can ask this consistently. What? So what? Now what? Because this really, really helps us to then start seeing patterns in ourselves. The first time I started using this a lot in my life, funnily enough, was when I started studying my education degree a lot later, because obviously I started in graphic design. And then I went into education and I was like, I feel like I'm drowning a little bit here. The graphic world and the advertising world is a very different world to in many ways, different to the academic world. But for every assessment that I submitted, I decided, okay, I'm going to use this tool and I want to see what I can learn about myself. That is really the beginning stages of when I realized that I had ADHD. I was consistently leaving things to the last minute. And that's why I say it doesn't matter that you sit here and you think that I'm this perfect person and I've had it sorted my whole life. And a lot of people think I do. It was not always out that way. It was definitely not. So what I learned was after the first 4 submissions was I was leaving everything to the last minute, and I was using the excuse of, well, there's so much stuff happening in my life. I have a full-time job. I'm part-time studying. I've got a very sick mom. I'm helping my brother with his kids and all these things. And I have, at that point, he wasn't my husband, but I was in a very long-term relationship. And so I was trying to balance all these things and I was just winging it. I was succeeding, but I was stressed a lot. And so, it's very important. And I see here Philip in the chat as well is also saying like, studies, paying bills. This is important. Like when you start to see patterns, and the reflection helped me to find my patterns. So I remember going like, what happened during this thing? I submitted this thing, but what happened? Where did I start? Why did I leave it late? what was going on, yada, yada, yada. And it was really descriptive that what part of this is really what happened, what did I feel, what should have been done, what has to be done, what were the expected consequences, what were the outcomes. It's a very descriptive phase. Then the so what. So that so what is really where the analysis phase comes in. That analysis phase is now saying, okay, so based off of what I've just said, what is it that I've learned? What is going on in my mind? On what basis are the actions being taken that I'm thinking about here? And what is this new understanding? And then once you've got this description and this analysis, it's very easy to then jump into stage 3 and go, now what? Which is now interrogating yourself. It's saying, okay, I now have seen what I did. I've now analyzed what I did. So now what must I do to develop stuff in the future? What am I going to do to change this? Or what am I going to do to improve this? Or what am I going to do to keep doing this? And that really helped me figure out my pattern. So if you're still at a space where you're not sure, I would suggest, going through this process, using this great tool. I obviously will be sharing this presentation with Joel so he can disseminate amongst you, but it is a great tool to use and definitely will help you. So that leads us into part 2. Part 2 is where there is basically turning this insight that we now have into systems, or at least action, right? We talk about new year, new you, but I want to say that it's probably less about new year, new you, and more about this is who I am, how can I be a better version of myself, rather than thinking that we need to change ourselves completely. So if we start planning our systems, putting the right tools into place, it's not really about, yes, we have discipline, but it's not about becoming more disciplined. It's really about saying, okay, I already have so many things. I'm balancing so many things. So I need to have fewer decisions to make my life simpler. I need to create better habits so that I don't have this cognitive load, so that I can actually make the decisions I have to. And then also protecting my mental health. That one's a super important one that a lot of us always put to the side. But without our mental health, without our emotional resistance, it's actually very hard to do anything else. So I'm a firm believer in sticking to those things. Okay. So how do we set the systems in place? On the screen right now, you will see a little screenshot, which I will get into. But one of the first systems that we need to think about is that there are multiple tools out there, maybe too many tools. That in and of itself is very overwhelming. So it's very important that we have to set up a schedule. We have to create a schedule that matches our lives. We can't just be taking whatever comes our way. Like, just because Bianca's sitting here and Bianca's saying this is the tool, if it's not working for you, don't do it. But definitely be aware that there are tools out there that will work for you. So I think the first type of tool that I want us to discuss are time tools. And I think it's very important to realize that not all time tools are equal. Some of these time tools are actually designed to protect time. Others are revealing how time is used, and others actually connect time to tasks and outcomes. Now, I actually use a mixture of all of these things. But it is important that you clarify what kind of problem you need to solve. Otherwise, you're going to download this cool tool and go like, well, this isn't doing what I wanted to do. So something as simple as just literally using a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar or the calendar that's built into your phone, whatever it is, right? A lot of the time, well, I'm using a Google Calendar here. But that tool just by itself is incredibly, incredibly powerful if used correctly. So for instance, with me, I'm supervising at a public university in the postgraduate space in transdisciplinary design. There are certain hours per week that I have to use and I cannot be available. But at the same time, I'm also a project manager for another public university. And there I have an entire different set of tasks that I need to do. But I can't have both of them affect each other because they're both different jobs with both different tasks and different time expectations from me. So it's very important that I have one calendar. That's something that happens often. You'll find that if you have a job and you're studying and you also have a private, you land up with 3 emails. You cannot get on top of that. It is incredibly hard. You might have 3 emails, but what I can suggest then is to at least, at the very least, connect your calendars together. So what I have is on my mobile device, I have connected all 3 of my calendars for both universities and in my private life, because obviously there's private life stuff that also has to go on. And I have them all in one calendar so I can see everything as a cascade or a waterfall, if you will. That means that I know if I'm going to double book, and it's very easy for me to manage my time. The other thing that you can do is color code events in your calendar, and you can also block out time where you are using it as focus time, for instance. And during that focus time, nothing will actually come through or bug you. So again, a free tool that is generally accessible on all our mobile devices and all our computers is a Google Calendar. So I do mention it as an easy tool. However, other tools that are very helpful with time and what we're doing, you could look at something like a task manager. You've probably all heard of Todoist. I actually just have To-Do Reminder, and I use the to-do list in my, again, Google Gmail. There's a little to-do list on the right-hand side, or a task list, if you will. Again, I try and keep everything together in the same toolkit because for me, I don't want to have 14 million, it becomes overwhelming, but 14 million apps and so many things. But sometimes you can't get away from it. But if you can bring everything together, again, it makes life easier. The to-do lists are very great in so far that you know what must be done in a specific amount of time, and being able to tick them off within that amount of time just tells you, okay, you've succeeded or you haven't succeeded. If you haven't succeeded, what can you do now to improve yourself? Then one of the other types of tools that I use significantly is time tracking software. So for me, because I do quite a lot of things, and you've established now that I'm working in different spaces, I've always been a huge fan of time tracking software. I actually use Clockify. Clockify is a free tool that you can actually have an app on your phone. You can have an app on your desktop. You can use it in the browser. You can connect it with a Chrome app as well. And it actually follows what you do, and it tells you how long you were doing stuff. And especially if you're starting your own company. So when I first started using Clockify right in the beginning of its little lifespan, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, I was doing a lot of freelance design. And I was thinking what an amazing tool it was. And I was already bringing it into my students' world, because when you start going into an entrepreneurial field, for instance, you often misjudge how much time you're using for something. So now, again, if you're a student, it's often easy to misjudge. You'll be like, oh, cool, I'm going to spend half an hour and I'm going to study that whole chapter. But you haven't taken into account how long the chapter is, the speed at which you read. Did you have to make notes? Is half an hour enough? Probably not. So the same thing can be said once you start using a time tracking software device like Clockify. It comes with a free option as well. So even though it does say like sign up, you can skip that and you can use it for free. The free one is more simple, but it does everything you need to do as an entrepreneur or as a student. And there it's beautiful because you can set up, especially if you're starting up with a new company, your own sort of entrepreneurial company, you can set up clients, you can set up projects, you can set up time, you can manually put in the time, or you can you can click a button and then it does everything while you're busy. If you start working in a particular tool and you've got the app, it automatically does that for you. And it just helps you to learn how long something takes, so that when you do eventually start planning stuff, you really do think about that. Okay, so let me quickly put that in for you. Clockify. Okay. Yes, so wonderful tool. And as I said, it will initially, when you sign up, it's like sign up, pay. You do not need to pay. It's like every app in the world, it's just confusing you to pay. You can use it absolutely 100% for free. Then, as I said here, we also need to think about what it is that we are. So I'm going to go into the whole student entrepreneurial, work thing as well. So for me, you'll see in this little red block that I've put there at the bottom, block oval, we have to have the non-negotiables first. What are non-negotiables? For instance, some of you need a certain amount of hours to sleep. Some of you must eat at the same time because you have families. Someone said, yeah, they have a wife. I promise you, wife doesn't care that you're busy. She made dinner, right? And these are realities. If you have children, they must eat at a specific time. They must sleep at a specific time. There's so many different things that we need to be aware of. So with that being said, I call these the non-negotiables. Obviously, if you're a student, you maybe don't have the types of, well, I don't want to assume many students also have children and things, but let's just say if you are just a young student and you don't have the responsibilities of, different stages of life, then one can assume that your main responsibilities are just within the realm of your learning. But then, yes, you don't get to decide when your classes are if you have a particular synchronous session. I know most of you here are in online learning. So if someone tells you you have a class or you have a test between 10 and 12 tomorrow, you don't get to change that. So that becomes a non-negotiable. If you are traveling to an office or you're traveling to a class or you're traveling to a test, you have to account for that time as well. So important. Again, that's a non-negotiable. It takes time. And then the other thing you need to realize is that you have energy realities. And these energy realities are, can you honestly tell yourself that you can work at exactly the same energy for 12 hours in a day? It's easy to say you can, but are you? So it's very important that we don't get sucked into the work fantasies like, oh, okay, I'm going to take today off and then I'm going to make up all the time tomorrow. No, we're human. We're human. We have to work in blocks. Okay. So you'll see here that I speak about short, repeatable study blocks. And that's where this little picture comes up on the screen, Pomo Focus. This is another free tool, by the way, and that's how you spell it, POMOFOCUS. It is a web app, but you can download it and you can get the paid for version. I don't use that. Nice and cheap, right? But just so you know, the Pomodoro technique is that we work in a Pomodoro is a 25-minute increment, and we work in 25 increment time sets. And so you can set up tasks. So you can see here, you can add a task, and then in the task, you can assign how many Pomodoros. So will this task take 3 Pomodoros? Okay, that's going to be 75 minutes. And it will build in the relax versus work time. So generally speaking, for every Pomodoro, for every 25 minutes, we need to take a 5-minute break. And this becomes very important as well because our brains need to reset. For anyone who's working with technology or you're working with numbers, you need to remove yourself from the numbers and you need to maybe go and read something. For someone who's working with a lot of words, you want to maybe go and move yourself into a space where you could be looking at a number, maybe play a little bit of Sudoku. If you don't have the luxury of walking outside, or maybe like putting your bare feet on some grass and stuff. Obviously nature is one of the best places to just reconnect. But you can get very sidetracked in nature. It's because it's really nice to be out there and not stuck in your office. But it's important to remember that wherever your brain is working, you want to move your brain. So if it's a quick 5-minute break, if you're with numbers, move to words. If you're with words, move to numbers. If you're with lots of technology and it's a lot of statistical stuff and it's very involved, move to a human and a conversation, or even patting an animal. Hugging a teddy bear, doing something that just pulls you out of the space that you were in. Rest doesn't come from doing the same thing on your phone. So it is important to remember that. Okay, the other thing is the non-negotiables first also talks about what you are unwilling to let go of. So when we talk about that is you need to be able to schedule important things into your life. So yes, you've scheduled dinner, you've scheduled your classes, but remember now you also need to schedule you in. When is the stuff that makes you you? We talk about not pour, you can't keep pouring from an empty cup, you being the cup in this instance. You can't keep giving of yourself if there's nothing to give. You still need to be you. I am a gamer. I love games. I play COD, I play Apex. Again, very weird for an academic, but I find time to do it. I love reading and doing all this very academic stuff. I write a lot of but when it comes to it, at least twice a week, I've scheduled game night in for myself so that I can just remove myself from my standard life and I can still fill up the little pieces that I need to. So yeah, and then of course, if you've got friends and family and things, you don't want to let go of that. It's just about scheduling it in effectively. Okay, so please don't misconstrue what I've said on this page. Students generally have it easier. It's the context in which I say it. I did mention it earlier that if you're just a student, it's such a terrible thing to say like that. But if you're just a student, you only have to focus on this one space, right? That one space is, I only have to worry about my studies. Everything in my family is going great. Everything with my friends going superb. Oh, I've got this part-time job. Nothing's going wrong. It's great. And that's why I say just a student, because often it's more than that. But sometimes it's good to just start with the simplicity of life. And so I actually wanted to give you an example. Now, this is a real world example from a student. She was just having a bit of a meltdown, and we sat down and we just quickly threw stuff together. And this is what I want to say. It can be as simple as this, right? I promise you, we did this in 30 minutes, and it was she went from being incredibly stressed to sitting down and saying, I can do this. I can do this. And then what we did is we revisited this every single month. And it really helped her to place her life or place herself into her life, because she felt like her life was just getting away from her. She was not playing games. She was also a gamer. She was not playing games. She wasn't seeing friends and family. She was working all the time and getting nothing done. And she just got so overwhelmed. And so I quickly grabbed a piece of like printing paper and we sat down. And then remember, I spoke to you about non-negotiables and things that can't be moved, the immovable. So for me, I use the black pen. Anything that is immovable is the black pen. So you can see here, times, well, we can't change time. Time exists. We can't change days. Days exist. And I always have this great idea that we should, well, days start on a Monday, but in order for us to succeed on a Monday, we actually need to start thinking about our life on a Sunday. So before, she said that she was working almost 24 hours a day and she was getting nothing done. Then she realized she actually wasn't. She was just sitting thinking about the stuff that she was not succeeding in. So it felt like she was always working, but she was not. So when we started doing this, so here's the black stuff. So this was a classroom. These are students that are working and learning at the same time. So not many classes, but a lot of research and work outside of class because they're postgrad students. Then I always go black, the stuff that's immovable. What can't we move? Okay, then the blue. The blue is the stuff that we need that keeps us, alive and healthy. So lunch, dinner, gaming. You can see these are like hobbies and food and sleep. So, although for her, I put sleep in black for her because for her, that was a non-negotiable. She went to sleep at 11 every night. It didn't matter. She needed a certain amount of hours to sleep. So I was like, cool, that's immovable. Some people are a little bit more flexible with their sleeping time. I'm definitely one of those people. Then I would have done it in blue. So, and then what we did is we color coded. So for instance, her travel time, we were like, well, you can't get away from travel. How long does it take you? And we used like orange. Then for everything that was creative that she had to do, we used yellow. So you can see there, those were moments that she was going to use specifically to work on creative exploits because she's obviously a designer. So anything that was practical was in yellow because yellow is a big practical happy color. And then anything in green was very theory. So again, green for me was, this idea of growth, because as you read, you grow your knowledge. And so we went with the green. And then the purple was actually writing. Don't ask me why we used purple. She wanted to use purple. And I was like, cool, because at the end of the day, it's your color coding. But for me, I always like to stick to at least the truth of black is immovable. Blue is stuff that keeps us alive and keeps us full. So I just wanted to show you that practical example. Then we go into part 3, and I'm very aware that I like to talk and that we're getting to the end of this. So I'm going to be mindful of that in these. I want to say, if you can give me like 15 minutes, I will be very happy. So things that you can do now, other than the practical tools that we've picked, I think that they're things that you need to start off with. So now that you know who you are, where you want to go, and you've started to find patterns, one of the things that we often forget is we hold on to stuff from our past, whether it's some old assessments that were depressing and we hold them there and we're like, oh, look at this thing. I'm going to remind myself how terrible I am as a human. No, don't do that to yourself, man. We've got enough things going on in our lives without making ourselves really hate ourselves even more. So no, don't do that. Decluttering. So digital decluttering, physical decluttering. For me, make sure that you have a nice clean space. And I say clean space, again, contextually. My clean space, okay, where I am now, I'm traveling and working at the moment, so it's a bit different. But I have a lot of knickknacks. I love things that make me happy. I've got pictures of my family, and sadly, my mom passed away, but I have a little corner in my office dedicated to her, so I know that she's always with me. So these are things, but they're clean, they're tidy. And when I look up, I'm like, I'm going to make you proud. Or I look down and I say, oh, they're my friends. I can't wait to see them this weekend. Oh, look, there's this cool picture. That's so me, So having the space that's clean, clean of the nonsense, clean of the negativity, but it just inspires you to understand and remember why you're doing what you're doing and where you're going. The digital declutter, something I have very big discussions with my students. I know you're stressed and you just keep saving everything to downloads and you keep saving everything to the desktop, and it's not the right thing. And you're also just saving quickly and you're saving untitled 400. And then one day you're like, oh, where's that thing? Set out a day, a Saturday or a Sunday. Know that it is going to be a hard day for you. Go through that digital device. Go and delete the stuff that is unnecessary. Make a folder on your desktop that's like, I'm not sure, and throw it all in there, and then slowly but surely get rid of it. There's a few reasons for this. Also, by the way, your desktop uses a lot of RAM when it loads up. So if there's too many things on the desktop, it also slows your machine down. So that's number one. But number two, just having a simplified view will already take the overwhelm that one experiences when you open up your computer and you see everything. You're like, oh my gosh, there's too many things. So start off by throwing everything in a folder and like unsure, and then slowly but surely, inside that folder say keep, maybe keep, delete, and you put everything into those folders and then you chuck it. Get rid of the stuff you don't need. And then eventually, if you haven't used anything in the maybe folder after 2 months, then you can start chucking that as well. And you only keep the stuff that's really important to you. And start by naming your stuff properly. The amount of time, we did a tiny test with my student. He would always name things like untitled, untitled, untitled 3. And we got to 3rd year. And it took him 30 minutes to find a folder at least every day. And I did the math, and it worked out that by the end of the year, if we carried on this way, he was literally going to lose 2 weeks of his life. And I said to him, imagine those 2 weeks you could have gone on holiday, visited a friend. This is time you can never get back. So when you realize it's really important that something as tiny as just naming something or knowing where you've saved it. Declutter, my friends, declutter. And then, this is starting with that idea of forming incredibly good habits, forming systems that work, giving yourself the opportunity to breathe, both in your digital world and in your physical world. Okay, have people help you with that as well. It's a good thing. then remembering self-care is a strategy. So for me, you have to remember, and again, we're going to laugh because I already said to you that I'm one of those people that doesn't have a standard sleep time. But research would tell you that the important things to focus on here is obviously your cognitive performance and rest, your breaks. It's very important. We've spoken about it during the Pomodoro experiment, how for every 25 minutes, one should take 5 minutes in a perfect world. And then obviously you've probably, at least someone in your life has consistently told you sleep, 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 sleep. I'm very open-minded to sleep. Mainly because you're more than welcome to read. There are certain people that need less sleep. There's genetic things involved. I'm one of those people. My entire life, I've slept no more than 3 to 5 hours. 5 hours is a very good night for me. It does mean that I have a lot more hours to fill, which is why I'm very, very strict about my non-negotiables and boundaries. Because if I just consistently did work over and over again, I would definitely burn out. So again, knowing yourself well enough, if you're a person that needs your 8 hours sleep, plan for it. Make sure you don't fall into the hole where you're now becoming this person that you're not, just because you're not listening to yourself, your body, your needs, your emotions. So if we just look at cognitive performance anyway, from back in 1988, Swallow was indicating that working memory has this limited capacity, and the more stressed that you are, the less you actually learn. And that's because there's so much cognitive load that it feels like things are falling out of your head. So it's important to remember to free your mind up, to give yourself those rests. Then it's also important to remember that with the Pomodoro technique, that helps you. So even though they're very much on a 25-minute Pomodoro, there are some theories that suggest you can actually work up to 90 minutes. You'll see a lot of academic spaces. You'll have a 90-minute class, especially in the practical realm. We often have a 90-minute class because you can't really draw or do anything significant in 25 minutes. So 25 minutes is not the standard rule, but if you're doing something that has a high cognitive load, I would definitely try the Pomodoro technique. If you're doing something that's more practical and skill-based, you could definitely go up to 90 minutes. And then with that 90 minutes, you would have a 15-minute break rather than a 5-minute break. So that's just important to remember. And then I did mention it earlier with the, stepping outside barefoot into the grass. I said without trying to be a hippie, but there's actual research called the ART, which is the attention restoration theory by Kaplan, 1989, where that he suggests that mental fatigue and concentration can actually be improved by time spent in or looking at nature. So even having a picture, so you'll see even like Windows has those pictures that come up on your screen. Even having a picture of nature can already just relax you. So just very interesting to think about the ways that all of this can help us. So important. Plan your rest and also plan guilt-free breaks. Don't take a break and then go, oh, I'm in trouble. I shouldn't have taken that break. Oh, blah, blah, blah. No, plan for them. You're going to feel better about it. If you're feeling guilty during your break, then you're not helping yourself at all. Then, jumping into one of the last important parts, it's financial well-being is just as important of mental and emotional well-being. This one we could have an entire session on, and I think everyone knows this, but I'm going to give you a few very good tools that you can just quickly sort of jot down. But I feel like I'm only now turning into an adult that can afford things. It probably isn't true. I probably had at the time contextually enough money, but for whatever reason, it just never felt like, I was on top of stuff. And again, I think it's only now that I'm older, now that I have these skills and these tools, I'm much better at budgeting. I'm less stressed about, what I owe, and, it really helps. So when I was younger, being very stressed and do I have enough money? And people are always shocked because I obviously started working a long, long time ago. I finished school at 17 and I finished studying at 20. So I already had my first job before I was 21, and my first salary was a whopping 1,500 Rand. And somehow that was cool. I could survive. I mean, I think I paid 500 for rent, but then the rest of that money was petrol, and there was a lot of cool stuff that I could do, petrol and going out and doing things. I think inflation is an interesting thing, but yeah, funny enough, I started off budgeting really well as a young person, and then somewhere along the line, I got stressed and was very bad at it, and I lost the plot. And then I even landed up in quite a big amount of debt for a very stupid mistake that I made. And then having to take out a loan and taking a good 10 years to pay that loan. And so, again, showing you that no one's perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have to get on top of it. And yeah, now I feel like I'm at that point in my life again, just following certain rules. So I think budgeting, also, you need to see it in a more positive light. Budgeting isn't about restriction. It's about reducing decision fatigue. It's about saying, okay, if I budget this properly, then I know what I'm in for. But I don't want to sit here and assume what any of you are going through. I know that some of you are struggling, and I know that some of you have way more expenses than others, and some of you are fine. But you have to, from your own context, think about specific things within your realm. So this first tool doesn't necessarily take those things into account. The first tool is a very flexible tool that looks at the 50-30-20 rule, where you should look at your money that you have as 50% needs, 30% wants, and 20% future. As I said, it's a tool that isn't for everyone, because some of us have so little that it's very hard to even think about wants or future. But if you do have any money at the end of a month, thinking about the money that's left, to be able to then to take that money that's left and think about 30% of your wants and 20% for your future or your buffer. But it's very important that at least 50% of what you earn has to go to your needs, your rent, your transport, your food, your data. So that's very important. And I see, luckily, we've got some links from Joelle in the chat, also about mastering your money. So I definitely say go and look at that if you haven't looked at it. Very, very important. But for those of you that can't even imagine what a 50-30-20 rule is, I need to tell you that the one and only thing you need to do every month, and that's what I started to do, was to just open a Google sheet and call it my budget, because what I must tell you is that if you cannot see it, you cannot manage it. That is the hardest thing, and yet the easiest thing to suddenly realize later on in your life. So I'm hopefully giving it to you in your earlier part of your life. If you cannot see it, you cannot manage it. If it's there in black and white on your screen, or even on a piece of paper on your desk, it becomes the easiest thing to help you. So for me, very, very important that even if you don't want to do any of the other things, sit down, write it down. What is my rent? What are the expenses that I cannot live without? And yeah, you have to think about what's so important to you. And I see some really interesting things on the right-hand side. Very, very important that you guys are engaging with this. So final part 4, very quick. Please, in your 12-month reset plan, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Again, I know I'm probably going to speed through this little part, but Joelle will share this, you will see it. But if you start today by thinking about one habit that you must build, what is it? One habit that you must stop, what is it? And one support system that you must strengthen. The support systems are the ones that we often forget. You're married, you're like, oh, I'm so busy. And I've done it myself when I was studying. I always be like, oh, at that point, not my husband, but he was a long-term partner. We've been together 21 years. And I'd be like, he's fine. We've been together a long time. He'll get over it. He'll get through it. And yeah, no, they don't. They get very sad, and you get very sad, and then it creates this unpleasantness. And before you know it, you lose days because now you've created a problem in your support structures. Don't do it. It's easy to do it because you take it for granted. Your friends, some of them are great support structures. Use them in good ways and be there for them. Your family as well. How can they support you? How can you, and it can just even be a phone call on a Sunday that just gets you through the rest of the week. Just nurture those. It's very important. And then I wanted to put this super, super important thing here. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? It's such an easy thing to think of, but if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So it's important for you to consider consistently, what are you going to design or do differently moving forward so that something changes, even if it's the tiniest thing. You need to want it and you need to change it, right? So again, I said it a little bit in the beginning, you don't need a new you, but you need systems that work for you. You are who you are. I remember my mom always saying to me, you know, when you're like this big, you're like 3 or 4 or 5, it's easy to change you because you're like a little sapling, tiny little green sapling. And that's how you can make plants move and grow and whatever. But now at your ages and my age, we are baobabs. Okay. We are immovable. But what you can do is you can't move us, but you can definitely make us healthier. You can definitely give us better nutrients. You can definitely create a space where that baobab can thrive. And so that's what you need to do. You got to realize I'm a baobab, but I want to thrive. I don't want to just become this hollowed out husk of a baobab. I want to be the best, biggest, amazing baobab. And give yourself the freedom and the belief in yourself to actually thrive and be that. So for me, give yourself permission to be imperfect, right? Always review every month. It's never going to be the same every month. Your budget won't be the same every month. Your needs won't be the same. Your what you have to achieve every month. Things change all the time. So know that it's not a perfect system. It will fail some months and you will succeed some months, but that it's a continuously evolving process with you. And then just reframe your success, right? So it's not about, again, it's not about becoming perfect quickly. It's not about change quickly. It's about saying, I kept doing this. I may not have succeeded this month, but I kept at it because I know I will eventually succeed. And so I leave you with these questions that will help to guide the rest of your year. This year, I will keep, I will change, and I will stop. What are my non-negotiables? What is one realistic weekly work or study block I can commit to? So what is that time and that duration? What is one small habit I can repeat weekly? Not looking for daily perfection, but to build on or to let go of. And then if I think about my peak period, so if I'm a student and I know that I've got exams there, that's a peak period. And if I have a work, I have a job and I know that it's in promo or, it revolves around holidays, then I know that's going to be hectic. So what are those peak periods? So I know where they are in my calendar and I already set them out. And then also setting boundaries during those peak periods so that you don't lose sight of the other things that are so important. One self-care action that I will intentionally schedule in, not fit in, intentionally schedule. And then one support system I will use. So is it a person? Is it a tool? Is it a routine? What am I going to do? And then if nothing changes, nothing changes. So at the end of this, you need to come up with that one sentence that you want to remember this year. And with that, my friends, I'm sorry for keeping you an extra 10 minutes, but I think it was important. I've really enjoyed speaking, I hate to say at you. I've started seeing a lot of the questions here. I know that a lot of my details have been shared earlier on. I really do urge you. I do have a lot going on my plate, but I will always, if you send me an email in LinkedIn, I will respond. If you want to hear more about the stuff, I'm sure that Joelle can organize something more specific if you say, look, we want to know about this or learn about this. But yeah, guys, I think if I can show you that I'm the most imperfect, perfect person, then each of you are the most imperfect, perfect people too. And that's beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to your year for you, and I hope that you have all the success that you need. Um, and for those that are very lucky, all the success that you want. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bianca.
Thank you
We
so much.
we definitely know that we're going to change, and I'm happy that you gave an example that I can relate to in the story of the student who didn't title his documents. So if I can share a very short story, I was just like that student. I had many untitled documents, and it was my assignment, and I thought that that untitled one was the right untitled one. I sent it in and got a zero because I sent, let's say it was HR as opposed to business management. So then I got a zero. So thank you so much. You reminded me of that. And overall, because I was also learning from you, I have realized that patterns tell you where you're going. And if you hate the destination, you have to change the course as it is. So thank you so much. And I will definitely do my best to send the presentation to those that have attended. And one more thing, the floor is open. As Bianca said, we apologize for taking 10 minutes of your time, but this is time that you are investing in yourself. And these are things that you can share with your children, your partners, and parents, even. So, thank you so much for investing in yourself. And the rules for asking questions is hand raised. And when you hear your name, please ask your questions. We're going to keep it at 5 questions max, just because we don't want to take more of your time. So, thank you so much. And we have one hand raised. Roberto, can you please ask your question? Roberto, are you there? And I'd also like to mention that if you are shy to speak, you can also ask your question in the chat.
I see Roberto is typing his question.
That's also
Yeah.
all right. Hoto, seems like your mic is off. Do you have a question by any chance? Okay, it seems like Hoto doesn't have a question. So my question, I guess, to break the ice would be, because I saw it earlier on in the chat, that budgeting is not feasible because there's a lot going on. And I know that's more a financial question, but do you have any sense that you can share in that regard, Bianca?
Sorry, Joel, I missed the end of that question. If you could just ask me one last time. I see Roberto is asking for a recap. I think, Roberto, they will share the presentation and the recording, so you will get a proper recap for that. Sorry, Joel, that question about the financial side, if you could just ask me one more time so I can get the end of that question.
That's no problem. So we had a comment in the chat that there is a lot going on in their lives that they can't even budget. So I'm not too sure if it's the busyness of life that is not allowing them or giving them space to have time to budget or the capability to budget. So because we don't have the context,
Yeah.
it means that you can answer it the way you want according to how you understood the situation.
Okay. Phew, I'm an emotional person, so I want to try and get through this without being emotional, but I am a human, so that's more important. I'm going to tell you a short story about one of the worst periods of my life, and it wasn't so long ago. I lost my mom 2 years ago, and it was a lot. But at the time, I can tell you that I was working. So the year that she was passing away, I was working at a private institute, and I was the think of a dean. It was private, so it wasn't a dean, but I was running 8 campuses, I was the head of graphic design education at the campus. It was still going through COVID stuff. We were still struggling with hundreds of students still not being able to get onto campus properly at this stage. My mom was in and out of hospital with cancer, and I was studying my master's. It was a lot. I didn't know if I would get out of that. At the same time, because of COVID and things, money was going quite badly, as you can imagine. A lot of us went on to like short time, and so it didn't matter that the work didn't change, but the parameters of work changed at that stage. And again, I don't necessarily have practical advice for you because we're different people at different points in our lives. And I obviously am very well aware that I had my partner at the time, who's now my husband. What I can tell you is I'm here. And I think that's very important, is that sometimes we take for granted that we've got to show up perfectly every day. But sometimes just getting up is all you need to do. Just getting up and being able to say that stuff is very broken right now, but it doesn't change the fact that I will persevere. And it goes back to the beginning where I said to you that for me, there's no such a thing as failure. These most terrible points in our lives often give us such a lot of growth. That we don't necessarily see it until much later on in our lives or much later on in a year. All of those experiences shape us. So yeah, it's not advice necessarily. It's just to show you that I'm still here, and I can't even at the time it was happening, where there was so much stuff going on and everything was falling apart, and I didn't even think I would be able to get through a month. I somehow did. Was it easy? No. Would I like to go back and do any of that again? Absolutely not. But it didn't change the fact that I had to go through it, whether I liked it or not. All I can tell you, and I'm not sure who asked the question, but all I can tell you is don't let go of the people that matter, because they are the ones that hold you up. When everything goes south, just keep going and keep the people close to you that matter. Jobs will come and go. People will come and go, but there's some people that will stay there no matter what. So protect them with everything you can. And I'm not talking about people that are going to like bail you out of every situation. That's not what it's about. Sometimes no one can bail you out, but they can just love you. And that's sometimes all you need.
Oh, indeed. And on that note, someone gave such a touching comment. So I'll read it out to you, Bianca. This individual said, "I'm so sorry about your mom, Bianca. I'm so proud of you. Thanks so much for showing that one can rise above anything." And Kagiso, you've got a question. Please unmute and ask your question.
Evening, everyone. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm good. So, here's my question, Bianca. You said something like when you were down and out, you had to take out a loan to pay off everything. So, is it advisable the minute you feel like you're drowning in debt and everything to take out a loan and pay off all the debts and start over from there?
So it's also a tricky one, and I'm going to say it's very contextual. So in my space, that debt that I landed up in was going to destroy me. And so I realized that if I didn't solve that problem quicker, then it was going to land up becoming more and more of something that I couldn't control. So again, I went off and I took used my support system. At that stage, it was my mom and dad. I felt very inept. And I wasn't even young, but I felt very young at that point. And that's why I say it's great if you have parents or friends or family that can help you through it. But I remember sitting with them and saying, I know they couldn't help me and I would never have asked them. They'd already done so much for me. But I said, what I can get from you is advice. And we sat down and we looked at what I owed and what the implications of owing that particular entity was. So what the kind of interest was if I left it in that one space and how quick they wanted me to pay it off versus the implications of the debt incurred at the loan level. And in that particular space, taking out the loan worked out cheaper than leaving it with the entity. So it's very important that you realize, and because people don't always see that, they think that whether the debt's here or the debt's here, it's the same implication, but it isn't. Often you can find really good loans with less repayment and less interest incurred versus where something sits. So for me, it made a lot of sense to go and get a loan with less, I want to say less debt implications over the 10-year period than if I left it in the original space with what would have incurred in that space. I hope that makes sense. Sorry, but you can get different debt for the same thing.
Cool. And we have 2 more quick questions in the chat. Dudu asks, how do you use Clockify? Not too sure if you'd like to suggest YouTube tutorials there. And then the other just wants a refresher on the colors that was used on the calendar schedule with your student.
Oh my word, sorry, I just realized that that was Sandra and I haven't seen her since primary school. She was one of my friends. That's really awesome. Okay, what a small world. Yeah, so with Clockify, if someone wants to hit me up in LinkedIn, I also will be very happy to have even a quick session with someone, but there are amazing tutorials on YouTube for Clockify. As I said, there is you can either download a little app to your desktop. You can use it in the browser. You can also use it as an add-on in Chrome, or you can download it on your phone. So it's really pretty amazing with the amount of diverse ways that you can use it. And then it's just about the initial thing is setting up what your tasks are. And then just literally using the little start, stop button, or it does start and stop depending on if you're using it in Chrome. But yes, I would suggest going to YouTube, looking for Clockify. If you're still struggling, please hit me up in LinkedIn. I am traveling and working at the moment, but I will definitely always try and answer as quick as possible. And then you said someone asked about the colors. Yes, so for me, the color should be something that means something to you. In this particular instance, because she was a design student, the 2 things that I think, no matter what kind of person you are, student, whatever, black should be immovable. So black is a very strong standard color. That is the thing. So if it's in black, you can't move it. Blue is blue because it gives you like health, happiness, keeps you alive. For me, blue is like water. It keeps you alive. So your food, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, what your hobbies are, for me, like I said, I've scheduled in blue for me is I've got 2 gaming sessions a week. Seeing, my husband is actually a magician and a musician. So I know that at least a Friday or a Saturday, I'm going to go and support him. So I block out time there. That's blue time as well. So again, just supporting my husband, but at the same time going out and moving myself away from these spaces. So it's blue and black are the main ones. And then for you, what are the colors that mean something for you? For her, because she was a design student, anything that was practical and creative, yellow made her happy because yellow was the cool, practical, skillful, artistic stuff. And then she went for, if I remember, purple for writing. So things that were writing. I couldn't remember why it was, but I have a feeling that she thought that writing was an important thing that she found difficult, and purple just stood out for her. And then she used orange for driving, funnily enough, because that was a stressful thing for her. And, that was time that came out of her schedule. And then there was red for very urgent things. So it's really about finding the colors that work for you. But the 2 colors that should always stay the same: black, immovable, blue for you. Okay.
Thank you so much for that direction. And I believe I'm going to shorten your name, so please forgive me. Zama, you will see this live on our, well, not live, but you will see this on our YouTube page, and you will receive a link within your email of this session, so you can always rewatch. And this goes for everyone else in the chats and in attendance. So just one comment and one last question. So as I mentioned before, so that we do not waste more of your time. So the one comment I have is great words from Gavaza. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but I'm going to shorten your comment. Do not delay your progress because you feel you are too old. Years will go by either way. So get up and start that course, that business, because one day you will thank yourself for not listening to the voice that wants to bring you down. And just to inspire you all or give you pressure, we have a few students in the 70s at IQ Academy and even more in the 60s. So please, guys, keep pushing and keep telling people that they should continue studying. So the last question that we have tonight for you, Bianca, is from Lulu. They're asking, I would like to ask how one can keep fighting to make their dreams come true while working, studying, taking care of their family, and at the same time pursuing their dreams, such as starting their own business. Because sometimes you come home stressed from work, yet you still need to study and also find time to sit down and think about ideas for the business you want to start.
Let's be honest, it's not sometimes, it's every day. Let's just be honest with ourselves. I think the best thing that we can do is always just be honest. And I also want to talk about the fact that I also had my own business once upon a time. That's when I landed up in debt. No, so yeah, the balancing act. And, you know, this is why I keep, Lulu, this is exactly why I keep saying a support system. It's so important not to ever isolate yourself. You have to have a support system. And it doesn't have to be a husband, and it doesn't have to be a wife, and it doesn't have to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and it doesn't have to be your mom or dad. You just have to have that one, at least one person that you have in your corner. A support system doesn't have to be a whole group of people. It can be as small as you need, as big as you need. It just has to be something that makes sense for you. And it could just be, it doesn't even have to be a child that says, I'm behind you, mom. You can just see that child and say, I'm doing it for you. It's a weird thing how support can come in so many different forms, but you need something. Often we don't love ourselves enough. I'm going to say most of us don't love ourselves enough. And it comes from a lot of things in our lives, you know, from never achieving things that we thought we should, or maybe even having a parent that we didn't feel that we ever, you know, amounted up to the expectation. So many little things. It could even be friends that we've had in our lives that bring our self-esteem down. And because we don't always love ourselves enough, we can't rely on ourselves, because if we fall apart and there's no one there to tell us that we are more, it can be very hard. And I say that knowing that I should be telling you that you only need yourself. And yeah, if I was that person that was like, yeah, you need yourself and you need no one else. No, my friends, we need each other. Even the people here, do not ever think that the people sitting here are not people that can be in your court. One of the jobs I started only a year and 2 months ago. On day one, two of us started in there and we've become inseparable. I didn't know her a year and 2 months and 30 days. So a year and 3 months ago, I didn't know her at all. We'd never met. Our paths had never crossed. And now she is one of my, I want to say, without her, I don't know how I would just get through every day. And it's interesting because we often think that it has to be someone from our past and it has to be someone who has this long experience with us. No. And by the way, in a year and 10 months from now, will her and I be in the same place? Maybe not. Maybe she'll move on. Maybe I'll move on. Who knows? But at any given point in your life, you just have to have someone that you can rely on, and both of you can rely on each other. And that's why I said, don't isolate yourself. That's a pretty story, Lulu. So I know you're thinking like, that's great, Bianca, but you didn't give me any practical advice. Again, it's very hard. I've now openly admitted that I had my own company. Um, and I don't have my own company anymore. But I say I don't have my own company, but I'm a freelance designer. So I just realized at one point that the kind of person I am, I'm too nice. I'm too nice for the world. And when they don't pay me, I don't know how to get the money. So that particular space didn't work for me. But as a freelancer, there are different contracts that you can work in. You can be very honest about how you want to work with a company. You can have contracts that are set up. Yes, sure, you should do that as a person that has your own company as well. But there's so many things in a company. I'm not telling you not to do it. Absolutely not. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. If my parents were difficult people, they might have thought I was a failure because I'm the only non-entrepreneur in my family. I went to university, imagine. But my parents, they owned their own companies and my mom didn't even go to university. My dad just went to Technicon. My brother didn't go to university, and they're all very, very successful people. Um, my mom always said to me, she's probably the wisest person I ever had in my life. But she always said, if you want something bad enough, you will make it happen if you want it, as hard as it is. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, that's great. But if I think about everything she said to me, in my hardest times that I've gone through, when I said to you that I wanted to give up, it was those words in the back of my head, knowing even when my mom wasn't here, I was doing it for her. I'm still doing it for her. So for me, it's that knowing that you're doing it for the greater good. For you, Lulu, it might be for your husband, it might be for your children. But when you know that to do something, when you believe in yourself, when you learn that it doesn't matter what other people think, only what you think of yourself and the people around you and what they think of you and the fact that you can succeed, that has to guide you. And I think that we need to move away from the concept of success being money. Success comes in many forms. Success definitely comes in good balance. Success comes in, just having enough is success as well. I think especially nowadays. So we need to stop thinking about success as being Elon Musk or being some other crazy person that somehow, has so much, because we're different people in different journeys. And we just have to get what we need. So I think you need to reframe your success. So if you want to start that company, does it have to be as big as ShopRite? No. Does it have to be in the Mall of Africa? No. Can it start in your second bedroom? Sure. Can it start at a flea market that costs $50 on a Sunday? Maybe, and I think that when we realize that just starting is success in and of itself, that's a great place to start. We don't have to be something that we're not, but it doesn't mean we can't get there. But we have to be realistic with our dreams.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Bianca, for your time and extra time, as well as everyone in attendance. Thank you so much for the time and the extra time. Please keep an eye out for more webinars. We are going to start hosting 2 every month. So please go through our webinar section on our website to see if there's any webinars that you may be interested in. Otherwise, please check your IQ email address or emails from IQ Academy. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining. And we'll see you at the next one. Cheers, everyone.
I have one thing to say. One thing, sorry.
Yes, Bianca.
I saw a very good question. Kotso said, how do we start a support system?
That's a good one.
And I'm going to tell you how I got my students to start a support system, because we were talking about students that were coming from different parts of Africa and everything. All you've got to do is just say, I need support. That's it. You can sit in your group right now. You can be in this chat right now and say, I desperately need support. Who else wants support? I'll be your support. Let's be support buddies. So if you don't have the family, if you don't have a good friend who understands where you're coming from, start here where you are. Find someone that is doing the same thing as you because you're in the same context and just start. But don't be scared to ask. We are very powerful when we communicate what we need. That's my last one.
Thank you. And it was a pertinent one because, as you mentioned, it's part of the 12-month plan and it's really important. So thank you so much for that and noticing the last question and being open to the last question because I wanted to cap it at 5 to respect people's time, but that is very important. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, thank you guys and cheers.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much.